Welcome back to our reading through the scriptures in 1 year, and I am just walking you through some introductions to give you some context of what you're reading, hopefully so you can go ahead and dig even deeper. This week you're going to be reading Nehemiah chapter 12 through Job chapter 7. And so as you move into your reading this week, here's what I want you to be looking for. The construction of the walls is followed by the consecration of the people. Ezra, remember, he's a priest. He's concerned about the spiritual life of the people. He's their spiritual leader. So he brings spiritual revival. Now, the only thing is that because the land, remember, was given all of Palestine and the tribes were given all, everybody wanted to go out of there, but they needed people to stay in Jerusalem. And so lots are drawn, and the question is who would remain in Jerusalem. 1/10 of the people who returned needed to stay in Jerusalem and protect Jerusalem from the enemies outside. And so you find that 1/10 of the people by lot stay in Jerusalem, live in Jerusalem, and the other 9/10, they're released to go ahead and resettle all the other rest of the land of Israel we know today as promised by God. Well, the walls of Jerusalem are dedicated to the Lord, but Ezra's revival is short-lived. We humans just have a hard time honoring God for a long period of time. Nehemiah, who had returned to Persia in 432 BC, well, he hears about this. He makes a second trip back to Jerusalem around 425 BC, and he's going back to reform the people this time. Remember, his first time had to do with concern about the people. Now he's concerned again. So what you have here is he cleanses the temple, he enforces the Sabbath, and he has the people put away foreign wives because they were bringing idolatry into the life of the people. Now we move into a delightful book. You're going to really enjoy the book of Esther. And this is Esther's life. And this, by the way, Esther's life fits between Ezra chapter 6 and Ezra chapter 7. And it's between the first return and the second return. Remember, the first one by Zerubbabel to rebuild the temple, second one by Ezra to rebuild the people. It's a biblical portrait of the vast majority of the people who were in exile in Babylon. Well, they want to stay in Babylon. They want to remain in Persia. So they don't want to go back to Jerusalem because it would be rough going. So what you're going to see in this book is that in the book of Esther, the name God isn't even mentioned. But you see God's providential care and protection of his people, even when his people were not back in Jerusalem, but they're way far away in Babylon. So what you're going to find how God will manifest his protection is that there's a man named Haman, evil man. He has a plot that's grave danger to the Jews. And it's countered by the courage of Esther, this young, beautiful young lady, guided by her wise cousin, Mordecai. And if the plot had come to fruition, then there would have been total annihilation of all the people living in Babylon at that time, as far as the Jews. But God provides deliverance through the courage of Esther, and again, the counsel of Mordecai. Today, if you have Jewish friends, they celebrate the Feast of Purim. It's an annual reminder of God's providential care at this time. You're going to enjoy this book, so I don't need to even comment more about it. But now we come to the first of the 5 books of wisdom of the Old Testament. Remember, you have 39 books in the Old Testament. The first 17 have to do with the past, so they're called historical books. The last 17 have to do with the future, so they're called the prophetic books. But sandwiched right in the middle are these 5 books that have to do with the presence, anybody's present tense. And these are called the wisdom books. And Job is perhaps the earliest book. That's why it's the first one we come to. And it's probably around the period of the patriarchs. That would be during the time of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. It's going to tell the story of a man, a righteous man, good man who honored God, and he loses everything. And it brings up the big question on why. Point of the book is going to be about the eternal wisdom of God and his sovereignty. Is God's sovereignty about God being a big bully because he's powerful? Or is God's sovereignty, as I would say, the cosmic chess player because of his infinite wisdom? This is what this book is going to be about. We're going to be introduced to the dilemma in the first 2 chapters of Job. And then we come to his friends that are going to give him all the wrong answers, even though they're loyal and they're there with him. So Job begins to get depressed because he's not getting any answers to his questions. Why now? Why this? Why me? So as you read this section this week, feel free to dig deep to your own questions and ask God for the wisdom. Maybe this will be a week that you read and you really dig deep on where do you hesitate? Where do you still question God and doubt God? And God will bring to the surface and you'll find resolution in the next week's reading. God bless you. We'll see you next week.